All right, guys, welcome to episode number 203 of the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks, as always, for being here. Happy New Year. If you missed us the last couple episodes, welcome to 2023.
It's like the Seinfeld joke. How long can you say Happy New Year?
I think Valentine's Day is the cutoff.
That's way too long.
I've already messed up several times, written 2022, like in my own journal, sent out an email today that said 2022 on it.
Yeah.
Forgive
You're
me.
a mess.
I'm in the past.
I have a funny joke for everybody. It's not really a joke. But it's about you messing up. I thought that would be funny for people to hear.
That will be funny.
So we had to go to the bank, and we had all these papers to sign. And it gets to the time where Jonathan's going to sign his name, and he's signing it, and he's like, I'm looking at it because I see something weird. And he's like, do you mind not looking over my shoulder? I'm like, you're not signing on the right line. So he's like signing on the total wrong line, like not where his name is supposed to be. Anyway, the guy looks at him. He's like, I need to go reprint these. I don't know why.
He didn't have a printer at his desk. It was like a 10-minute thing.
And then he's had to reprint them. And then it was all like, Jonathan's like, okay, I got this.
Extreme focus.
Sign on this line.
And how did it turn out?
You nailed it. You signed on the right line.
Second time was a charm. It's been a while since we had a podcast sponsor, but I'm happy to report we have one back this week.
Zevia?
There you go. It's a return sponsor, Zevia.
Serious?
That's right.
They're back, baby.
You'll have to forgive the coughing. I did a 1,000-meter row for time yesterday.
This is still with you
afternoon.
for a day?
I've been coughing ever since then. Sounds like I have a smoker's cough, but it's actually just extreme exertion.
I call it burpee cough, but yeah.
Similar thing.
You can get it from other things other than burpees.
Yeah, it doesn't usually last overnight, but it's hanging on.
Well, I think the air's super dry and polleny and
yeah. That's what I get for trying to push myself. So Zevia is back. If you never tried Zevia, it's a great 0-calorie carbonated water. Comes in like root beer flavor, ginger ale flavor.
I like the ginger ale or the purple one. I can't remember what the purple one is.
Just great flavor.
The only thing, I don't know, a friend pointed out to me that he's like, where do you buy these? You don't buy them with the carbonated waters. You buy them with the Cokes. Mm-hmm. But they have 0 calories. The ingredients are, I'm reading it off my can right now, carbonated water, citric acid, stevia leaf extract, natural flavors, and ginger ale extract. So there's nothing in it that I'm suspect of. It's just like, why do they sell it with the Coke? Maybe because it's like a Coke alternative.
Maybe because it only comes in a 6-pack. I don't know.
That makes no sense. Anyway, it's not found with the normal sparkling waters like LaCroix. It's like found with the Cokes.
Yeah.
But, I think it is because it's like a soda replacement because they have like a root beer. They have like a Zevia, a Dr. Zevia.
Right. Dr. Zevia. Thanks, Zevia. Send us some free Zevia in the mail. We'll send you our address. Yeah. So what do we have today? We have a Q&A episode, don't we? Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, let's make an announcement since it's still January before we get into the Q's and A's that we still have spots available for the special that we're running this month. Sign up and join a custom training program in the month of January and get a 100% free month of nutrition coaching, either with myself or with Haley. There's no better way to supercharge your results than to dial in your nutrition at the same time that you start an amazing training program. Mm-hmm. So if you feel like you have been doing things for your training and exercise that aren't working, or if you're just intimidated to start because you don't want to get hurt, you don't know what to do, you've done things in the past that didn't work, and you're just kind of like, this isn't going to work for me. Now is the time to join and increase your capability, increase your chances of getting results by getting a free month of one-on-one nutrition coaching at the same time.
Yeah. And we've talked about before about how like having a coach and having a plan is really the key to success. You walk in the gym with nothing, with like not knowing what you're going to do. And man, you can waste some time and energy and like, 3 weeks later, you're like, okay, what have I done?
Right.
This isn't working. You have a coach that is looking out for your best interest, is making sure that you're actually doing hard sets, is making sure that you have a progression to follow, and that you have a training program with purpose really will make a difference.
Yeah. And then on the nutrition side, our approach is all about meeting people where they are, helping them make sustainable changes to their nutrition that line up with their goals, whether that's counting calories or not. whether that is, helping you solve problems around the reason that you eat the foods that you do, helping you find substitutions for foods that aren't serving your goals, helping bring awareness to things that you probably don't even realize you're doing right now, and then helping you change those things, and then educating you along the way so that it's something you can go do on your own and maintain the results that you get. So that's our approach. So I'll put a link for where you guys can apply in the show notes to this episode.
I have something off topic first before we begin.
Okay.
This is my question because I want to pose a question and for y'all to answer.
Not for me to answer?
Not for you to answer.
Okay.
For other people. You don't have the answer to this question. We're almost 2 years now living in this house, and we're on a well. And every month the salt goes in, and
we have a water softener.
Our water cannot be more salty. Like if you splash a little bit on the countertops, there's just like white spots everywhere. All our dishes look like they're filthy. It's madness.
All of our dishes don't look like they're filthy.
They have white spots all over them.
They wear quickly. No, it seems like.
But like anything with color will have like white spots all over it.
Yeah.
Don't come here. It's gross. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
don't come here.
2 years in, and this, I have to say, my hair has never been worse. I'm having a major problem with like washing my hair here. It's like full of the salt, I think.
Is that why you're wearing a wig right now?
That's why I'm wearing a braid.
It is tough. It is some salty
If anybody
water.
has ever lived on a well for like a long time,
is
there any advice for how do you wash your hair with well water?
We could rig something up in the shower with like a gallon bucket above your head with some holes in it.
Well,
or something.
I have a plan because every time we go camping, we get to use like city water, which is city because we're kind of doing opposite camping of most people. We like go to camping to get fast internet and better water and stuff like that. But I'm like, oh, this water's amazing. So I'm going to fill up our camper before we leave this time with city water, bring it back in and just start showering in the camper until I run out. And then it's time for the next camping trip.
You'll have to run the water heater in the camper unless you want to take a cold shower.
Shoot, I didn't think about that.
I mean, you can.
I'll go in like a wetsuit.
It runs off the battery. We
okay.
could make that happen.
I'm going to try it.
I don't know if this is a long-term solution, but I was going to say, I don't think since we've lived here I've ever just drank the water out of the faucet. I've always used bottled water, that we get refilled.
Yeah.
I wonder if that water tastes salty.
I bet it does. We used to make our dogs drink it. Now we've switched them over to bottled water as well. It's way too much salt in there.
We were getting some complaints.
All right. We better get to the question.
Right.
So that's my question for y'all.
Yeah. Send her an email.
How do you deal with well water? Okay. First question. Is creatine weight increase? I'm having trouble with the way this is phrased.
It is phrased.
When you take creatine and you gain weight, is that weight increase temporary or is it permanent?
Okay, that's the question. Okay, let's do a quick recap of what creatine is in the first place. It is a naturally occurring compound that your body actually makes on its own and you can find in food. It's made from amino acids and it's stored in your muscles. You can normally, most people will store 1 to 2 grams in their muscles as is, just with a normal diet, So, and the reason we supplement with creatine is that it's useful in helping us regenerate our body's energy currency, which is ATP. We break those ATP bonds when we do muscle contractions, and we have a natural process to restore those, but we can make it happen more quickly if we have more creatine in our muscles to make it happen. Essentially, creatine donates one of its phosphates to help that bond happen more quickly. So by supplementing with it, you stock up. You have as much as you can hold in your muscles, and you just never run out. Having creatine will never hold you back from doing more reps in your workout. So that's the reason that we supplement with it. Now, one of the side effects when you first start taking creatine is as it is stored in your muscle cells, it binds with water. It actually increases the amount of water held in the muscle. And along with that water that it binds with comes some weight. So you might see the number on the scale go up because of all that creatine saturation in your muscle. But this is not an increase in body fat because that's actually the water in the muscle cells. And this is a really good thing. It's actually having a larger muscle cell size is kind of a precursor to muscle protein synthesis. I mean, you have the potential to build more strength in muscle by having a larger size cell in your muscle. So these are all really good things. Now, some people get kind of like tied up in this because they feel like, oh man, I gained 2 pounds. It's not uncommon to gain 2 to 4 pounds in the first couple weeks, 3 weeks of taking creatine. So they start being like, oh crap, I'm gaining weight. Well, think about where you don't want to see extra weight in your body. It's probably on your stomach, in your face, in your arms, in your hips, in your thighs. Well, if you're storing the extra creatine water weight in your muscles, you're not actually going to see that as like weight on your body in a bad place. So try to detach your emotion in seeing the number on the scale go up when you start supplementing with it. Now, the question was, is creatine weight increase temporary or permanent? Well, once you stop supplementing with creatine, your body will reduce back down to its normal baseline levels of 1 to 2 grams. And with as you deplete your creatine through regular exercise, if you continue training, that water weight that the creatine was making you hold will dissipate and your body weight will go back down. So sometimes, like if we have somebody who is kind of like prepping for a vacation or something like that, we will cut creatine out a week or two beforehand, just in case there's any extra water retention anywhere else in the body. It'll make you appear leaner to flush it out of your system. But if you're continuing to train and your goal really is to build strength and muscle, don't worry about the extra water weight. And should you need to get off of it for whatever reason, the water weight will go away.
So this truly is the saying, it's mostly water weight when
It's
you get on the
mostly
scale.
water weight. Yeah, it's actually mostly intracellular water weight, as the saying goes.
So if you take creatine for a year straight, your body will hold on to that for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, as you deplete it as you work out, but then you're restoring it when you retake the supplement every day.
So long as you take between 3 and 5 grams of creatine every day, it doesn't matter what time of day, just creatine monohydrate, you will stay topped off on your natural creatine stores, and along with it, that water weight.
Do you know how long, like when you start to take it, how long does it take for you to kind of get that initial like weight increase?
It'll be a little bit different for everybody. And some people actually recommend like trying to get to maximum saturation as fast as possible with this loading phase where you have like 25 grams of creatine every day for a week. I don't recommend doing that. Number one, it's not necessary. Number two, if there are going to be any negative side effects in you in particular in supplementing with creatine, you're more likely to have them if you try to load it in really quickly like that. So just start with 5 grams a day and build it up over time. And within a week or two, you'll be fully saturated.
Okay.
And
So
you'll be
then you
good to
could
go.
just kind of think about that's your new normal weight. And
For
you
sure.
just are staying on it. Yeah.
So
like you said, you won't really be feeling it. You won't feel it like, it's not like a bloated feeling. And you won't feel it. You won't see it in the way your clothes fit, and you won't see it in your body. You might see it in like muscle size.
Yeah,
potentially.
You probably won't see anything, honestly, because if you think about how many muscles you have in your body, you don't get to choose which muscles.
It's not all in the bicep.
Right. Right. Maybe it's all in like your big toe muscle. It's going to be spread out all over the place. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Now, I would say, like, if you are somebody who keeps track of your average weight from week to week, make a note in your log wherever you do this that this is the week that I started creatine. Same thing goes if you buy a new scale. Make a note because you're probably going to weigh something different with a new scale too.
Okay.
Hold on, let me take a sip of my non-Zevia.
I'll ask the question. What are you supposed to do if you get sick during the middle of a strength training cycle?
Good question. We touched on this a little bit in our episode about coming back from COVID.
Yeah.
Because those were sometimes some pretty long layoffs. I guess my advice would be to lower your expectations and give yourself a little bit of grace. Just, high level advice here about getting back under the barbell. Know that your strength probably did take a little bit of a hit and that you automatically know you're going to have to reduce total volume and load and intensity.
I'll say strength probably took a hit temporarily.
Correct.
You didn't lose strength if you were out for like a week or a week and a half being sick or something like that. You feel weak probably because you've probably been depleted on your calorie intake, low energy, not moving around as much. So it's not like your strength took a hit, but you're not going to probably be able to go right back to the same weight you were doing right before you left the gym.
Your body was using its resources to help you get well, not maintain muscle.
So give yourself, a little bit of time. I mean, maybe even a week or two to get back up to the weights that you were doing.
Yeah. And
don't worry about it because you didn't lose that strength. To just like give your body time to readapt. Yeah.
The same process that got you strong in the first place up until you got sick will just resume when you get back under the barbell. You will continue to linearly, is that a word? Progress once you get back into it. You just have to probably start at a lower place than where you started. Now,
but I think the
where you left off. I mean.
Yeah, but you'll be able to pop right back to that weight within like a week or two. You
Absolutely.
might have to start significantly lower than when you left off. Like just say so you're, what's a good number? You're squatting
1 million.
I won't give any numbers because it really depends on what
Yeah.
you were doing,
I think
how strong you are.
We're purposely
like,
trying
what
not
was-
to give numbers
What
here.
would the what the program was? How frequent were you going to the gym on
Yeah.
that thing? But short answer is just give yourself a week or two to get back into the flow. Don't think that you've lost your strength, but get back to it slowly. And we always recommend first getting back to the strength, and then if you were doing any conditioning, incorporating that once you feel closer to 100%.
Yep.
All right. Is chocolate gravy and biscuits part of your Sunday morning breakfast? That sounds disgusting. Chocolate gravy.
I had to include this one in because our friend Daniel, he's in Houston. We were actually on his podcast years ago. Every time we post a biscuit Sunday, Daniel Thornton, owner of Sign Out.
Oh, okay.
Every time we post a picture of biscuit Sunday. Biscuit Sunday. He's always like, you have to try biscuits and chocolate gravy.
Oh,
and
my
my response
goodness.
is always the same, that sounds disgusting.
That sounds really gross to me.
But I thought it would be a good chance to talk about why do we do biscuit Sunday?
Yeah.
Because we don't ever talk about cheat meals. Our biscuit Sunday is not a cheat meal. I don't think thinking about your nutrition in any kind of form of cheating is necessarily helpful for anybody.
Yeah.
But, we're very routine with most of our eating. We make substitutions for different proteins and carbs. Mm-hmm. But in general, we eat relatively the same type of things all the time, unless we're traveling or out with friends or whatever. So, I think it's important to have a balance between routine and then giving yourself some flexibility and something to look forward to with your diet that's planned, not a cheat.
Yeah.
So I've tracked our biscuit Sunday or my biscuit Sunday meal.
Your biscuit Sunday. You're going hard on these biscuit Sundays.
So my typical breakfast is like 350, 400 calories, and biscuit Sunday breakfast is more like 1,000 calories. Could be as high as 1,200 calories if you go for an extra
That's
biscuit.
a lot of butter.
A lot of butter and maybe an extra biscuit. But the point is that having a high calorie meal doesn't derail our health and fitness, and it won't derail your health and fitness. I made a post last week or week before about a high calorie meal at a special occasion has no power to influence your long-term weight or health. And then the bad news is your dog's birthday, being late for a meeting,
Getting a raise.
the fact that it's Saturday or Thirsty Thursday at the bar, those are not special occasions.
Yeah.
So having those high calorie meals does not make us gain weight
Yeah.
in the long term because it is such a small part of our overall diet. So I want people to really think about that. Are you having your own biscuit Sunday, but having it like 6 times a week, but it's called something else? That will derail your progress. It takes some awareness and honesty with yourself, but it gives us something to look forward to. And, it's like kind of a ritual. It's a tradition, I guess you would call people who come to stay with us are like,
Is it biscuit?
Is it biscuit? Is that why so many people come stay with us over the weekend?
It's biscuit Sunday. Let's go.
Yeah. And I will point out the Grand's frozen biscuits, way better than the Grand's canned biscuits. So don't be hating on frozen biscuits. If you have time to make homemade biscuits from scratch, more power to you. But these Grand's frozen biscuits in the oven, 15, 20 minutes. Ooh, so
What I
good.
kind of want to try now that we're talking about biscuits is I grew up on the Bisquick where it's the powder and then you mix in with milk.
That's what we made pancakes out of.
But you can also make biscuits out of it. I guess
That's
it's
heresy.
the same recipe. I'd like to try to make biscuits out of that. I can't. Yeah, I guess you just make a little ball. It's like a little ball biscuit.
Yeah. I mean, you must.
They're
do
not
something.
pretty. They're not like cut out like they don't look like biscuits. They look like little
Pancakes?
balls of dough.
Well, that's what a biscuit is.
Yeah.
I guess the biscuits, they usually like stamp them out of
Yeah.
a
You have a little
cookie cutter.
Yeah,
kind of
you have
thing.
a little cutter. Yeah.
So that's why we do Biscuit Sunday. I hope that you can have something in your diet that you look forward to like we do.
Yeah.
Biscuit Sunday.
All right, next one. I'm thinking about doing my first build bulk, but I'm nervous to gain fat. Is it possible to build only muscle? The dream.
No, next question.
That's the dream we all
I can-
have. No.
I can speak to this one personally because I am about 10, 11 weeks into a building phase / bulk phase. Ended my cut at about 157 pounds. As soon as I switched right into a surplus, aka bulk, aka build, and my weight immediately shot up like 2-3 pounds in the next day, just from like increasing carbohydrates so much. So in that 10 weeks, I'm up about 7, 8, sometimes 9 pounds. So I'm familiar with the process. I've done this many times with myself personally and with clients. So the question is, I'm nervous to gain fat. Is it possible to build only muscle? No, it's not. Yeah. Now, there's things that you can do to maximize your chances of building mostly muscle and not gaining fat during the course of a bulk. So we'll talk about that. And we have an entire blog and podcast episode about this too. So I'll link to both of those in the show notes for this. But
you, I mean, actually you just posted that picture of you on the phone at the Coors factory a long time ago. And that was during a like, quote, bulk phase.
We would call that like a dirty bulk.
Yeah. And that's what I was that's what I was bringing up. It's like you were going at it where you were just like, let's eat all the food. It doesn't matter if it's what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
I was having 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a day. And I was probably in like 1,000 calorie per day surplus for several months.
You put on you put on a lot of body fat during that time.
And I've learned since then that doesn't have to be the way.
Yeah.
You don't have to get fat just to get strong. Okay, let's talk about how we minimize our chances of gaining fat when we're in a bulk. So it's going to take a calorie surplus to gain weight, to gain muscle, to build strength. That means you have to figure out about how many calories you're eating right now, and you need to add to it so your body has that extra energy to build new tissue with. You can't expect to build new muscle if you're not putting in more calories than your body needs just to keep you alive and survive like what you're doing already. Yeah. So to build bulk with less chance of gaining fat, what you need to do is you need to manage your calorie surplus. You don't need a ton of extra calories to do what I just said. Somewhere between 10 and 15% over and above your maintenance calories or how much you're eating now is going to be enough if you're willing to be patient and you don't want to gain a lot of body fat. You know, if you're in this process and you want to build as much muscle as possible and not gain fat, you need to be training hard. You need to be tracking your workouts. You need to be taking advantage of progressive overload. You need to make sure you're adding reps and weights to the bar. That's going to be the stimulus to build muscle. If you just put extra food in and you don't give your body the stimulus to build more muscle, it's more likely that you're just going to gain fat. So train hard. If you don't have a training program, we know a company you can hire to help you with that. Monitor your progress. Look at your average weight from week to week. Weigh yourself every day and divide by 7. See what your average weight for the week was. I feel like this, I'm having like a relapse of that time I drank too much coffee on this.
Just like every podcast.
I think when I talk a lot, I get out of breath. So I guess I'm like passionate about this stuff. All right. So monitor your weight from average from week to week and look to gain about 1/4 to 1/2 pound per week to kind of stay in that sweet spot of gaining mostly muscle and not fat. The heavier you are, you can push more into the higher percentage of that. And the more you're willing to be a little bit uncomfortable with, the more you're willing to be comfortable with gaining a little bit more fat, the higher you can push that also. I'm okay with putting on a little extra fat during this phase because I am confident in my ability to lose fat afterwards. And I'm enjoying the flexibility of not having to micromanage my calorie intake. I'm not tracking my calories during this bulk. I'm just monitoring my progress and kind of adjusting my daily food intake based on that. So one other thing I want to say about going into this, the way that the person phrased this question is they're nervous about gaining fat. This tells me that it might not be a good idea for this person to even do this. They might just want to stay at their maintenance calories if they're coming out of a cut and just do what I just talked about with the training hard. Because probably the most frustrating thing you could do is say, I'm doing a bulk, you start eating a little bit more, you start seeing the number on the scale go up, you start seeing a little bit more fat on your stomach or wherever else, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
This wasn't supposed to be part of the deal. And you pull the ripcord and then you start dieting again to lose that fat that you gained. You're never going to make any progress like that. You got to be willing to commit to seeing your body change a little bit, knowing that you have the skills to lose that fat in the future and reveal the work that you just did. So you got to have a healthy relationship with your body image is what I'm saying.
So let's talk really quickly about how we go about doing this when we both do a bulk and a cut. Simple ways to do it is to just like add portions to
Yeah.
each meal. So like, for example, for our breakfast, you will add either a tortilla with the oatmeal and eggs, or you will add more oatmeal to the pile.
Yep.
Add more chicken to the pile, add more rice to the pile.
Yep.
So at each meal, you're just adding a little bit more. And then at the end of the night, you might add in like an extra, like high protein snack at the end of the night, maybe like yogurt with berries mixed in or something like that with some honey drizzled over it. So that's going to give you those extra calories that you need. And in a way that's a little bit cleaner, not allowing you to just like put on extra body fat. Same thing when you're ready to lose some of that body fat, you can do the same thing by just taking off some of that portions. That's really the way I love to do this, because I don't like to like miss a meal or miss a snack or just, not eat certain foods,
Yeah.
So just reducing the portion, and you really don't miss it. Taking off some rice off the plate, taking off some oatmeal, not having that late night snack.
That's great advice for long-term success. The worst thing you could do is try to completely revamp your diet to, sometimes when we're transitioning into a bulking phase, we're only talking about eating an extra 200 to 300 calories per day. A big guy, maybe 500 calories per day. It's not like you're sitting down to stacks of French toast in a bulk. You're adding a little bit more food in. And the best way to do that successfully and maintain a healthy relationship and be able to transition off of this eventually is just eat more of the healthy foods that you're already eating.
I think the scary part comes from two things. Like the old school methods of the bulk was
eat the
pizza, drink gallon of milk every day, like the whole milk. Like it was, I used to I think 10 years ago or whatever, I used to think like I wanted to get more muscular and, do a bulk, but I was terrified of it because I didn't want to drink a gallon of milk every day. And I didn't want to just like feel gross from all the foods I was eating. So I never did one back in the day because I was too nervous about it. And the other piece is like, we kind of maybe look at some of these people who like maybe athletes or people on Instagram or things like that who are, show what they eat every day. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of food. But you also have to take into account their training.
Yeah.
So someone who's like an elite athlete of some sort that is like eating tons of food and just like, you also like they are training 8 hours a day or, and so you have to take that into account. So if you're just a normal person going to the gym 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, adding in the 200 to 500 calories and then reducing it, easy.
You are not
peasy.
You are not The Rock. You are not Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I think Sports Illustrated put out an article like showing everything Michael Phelps eats in a day, and it was like 7,000 calories? How many people went out and be like, I want to look and perform like Michael?
In the CrossFit world, like Matt Frazier, like he's always been, posting about what he eats and like, just throwing down Skittles in between workouts and like,
that's the missing piece.
But you also, the missing piece is the training. All right. Last year, I lost about 20 pounds counting macros, but I gained it all back after the summer. I'm nervous to try again. Any advice?
I love this question because this is something I've been really passionate about over the last couple of years is not letting macro tracking just be another unsustainable diet that you do. So first thing I'd say to this person is congratulations on losing the weight. I mean, that's hard to do. You were dedicated during that time. You had to make a lot of sacrifices. And I'm proud of you for recognizing now that, you should be thinking about this. You should be nervous, because what you didn't really work for you in the long term last time. So I guess my first piece of advice to this person before telling them what I think they should do is ask them, what did you do with your nutrition during that, I guess it was about 6 months that they lost it over. What did you change with your nutrition during that 6 months? Besides the fact that you were weighing your food and typing it into an app, like, was there something that you stopped eating a lot of? Did you start eating more fruits and vegetables? Did you make more of your own food? Did you cut out soda? Did you stop, keeping candy around the house? What was the actual behavior change that happened? Because that's the thing that we got to get back to. We don't necessarily need to jump right back into the same thing that you did to lose the 20 pounds in the first place if you didn't keep the results once you stopped doing the thing. So that's my first question. And then I would ask them, how rigid were you during the process when you were tracking your food? Because macro tracking in and of itself isn't really a diet. You could do carnivore and track macros. You could do keto and track macros. You could do Weight Watchers and track whatever. What was it? Did you follow like an unsustainable protocol in the first place that you just kept track of in MyFitnessPal? Because now that's something we got to talk about. What approach did you take? Because we know that taking a really rigid strict approach is not going to be sustainable long term. So that's a question I would ask them.
And we want the macro tracking to be a tool for you to like learn how to eat. We don't want it to be something that you like just put in what you eat and get a number at the end, and that's how you've lost weight. Because if you do that and then you go off of it, you haven't learned anything along the way. What we're looking for when you're tracking macros is like looking down at your plate, seeing how it's built, understanding what's on it, you know, understanding about how many calories you eat during a day, and being able to do these things instinctively without putting it into the MyFitnessPal calculator.
Making the correlation between the actual food that you eat and what is the nutritional value of it.
That's why we like to start people with the fundamentals of like understanding what is protein, what is carbs, what is fat, what is fiber, and then going into like, you know, eating mostly whole foods. How do you make a plate? Using the hand roll. So whenever you don't have a scale, you understand like portions. Then all these things are these tools that we use, and macro tracking is just another tool that we're using to like educate you along the way.
Yep.
And then in the end, the goal is to be able to just eat freely.
Like a human.
And maintain, you know, you can gain weight, you can lose weight, you can maintain weight without having to put it into a calculator.
Yeah, through awareness.
Yeah.
So I would ask this person, or I would advise them, before you go back to tracking, like you just said, nail the basics first. Do you even understand energy balance? Do you understand macronutrients? Do you understand how activity plays into all this kind of stuff? You got to nail that stuff first. And then number 2, don't go straight back into having a rigid calorie goal, and don't go back into having a strict protein, carb, fat goal. You're much more likely to be successful if you work within ranges, and if you even potentially leave yourself some extra calories to play with on the weekend. And this is something I've changed my mind on over the years. I used to think everybody should just try to eat about the same number of calories every day, and that can work up until a certain point, but I've kind of become more flexible on the idea that purposely having more calories to play with on the weekend can lead to longer term compliance. And that's the most important thing. So, you know, work within the 200 calorie range. That's good enough. You know, work within trying to get about 10 to 20 grams of your protein goal. Maybe you don't even give yourself a carbohydrate and a fat goal to start, because the most important things are total calories, total protein, and total fiber. Let your carbs and fat fall where they are, and takes where they, you know, naturally fall into based on your own food choices, and give yourself more flexibility. That's probably going to be more sustainable. And then last but not least, when it does come time to stop tracking food, and there should be a time when you stop tracking food, follow the process that we've outlined before of weaning yourself off of food tracking so that you can test your skills and your habits. You can always go back and increase how much you're tracking, you know, if you need to, like if you're not being able to hold yourself accountable without it, but have a plan.
So what you mean is like, don't, you know, pick 2 days a week that you're not logging.
Right.
Test your skills during those days.
Yeah.
Then add a third and fourth day. Test your skills during those days. You're keeping track of your weight and how you feel and your, you know, body metrics during this time. And then finally release yourself from the tracking.
Yep.
Don't just like go on and off.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a feeling that based on how they phrase this question, that they maybe were dieting down for summer or something like that. And then something happened to where they couldn't log perfectly, or they didn't want to anymore. And they kind of fell into that all or nothing mentality and just quit altogether. So that's what we want to avoid. We want to have a plan to wean yourself off this on purpose. And we have an article about this, I'm 99% sure. So I'll link to that in the show notes.
All right. Sometimes I eat at the cafeteria at work and it's hard to track what I'm eating. How can I track these meals?
We got to go back in the kitchen, see how they're making all this stuff. Ask them for the recipes. No.
I mean, I think, you know, this is tough. It's tough, you know, when you're eating food that you have not prepared. How do you know what you're eating? And I think this kind of piggybacks off the last question. Is the first piece is understanding, you know, the choices that you're going to make in the cafeteria, understanding already like how to make a plate, you know,
knowing what food is.
Yeah. Knowing what food is, how to make portions out of like mostly whole foods, like using the hand roll, like what we just talked about.
Do you know the difference between lean and non-lean protein sources? Do you know the difference in carb sources? Do you know how much fat can be hidden in certain dishes that you might not even be thinking about? This is like the fundamental stuff that will let you have a more accurate experience with trying to log what you get out in the world versus preparing your own home.
And then if you are tracking these meals like in something like MyFitnessPal, make sure that you're not you're not just trying to pick the lowest calorie of like the list. Like, okay, I put in like this is yellow rice.
Oh, here's a hamburger that says only has 1 calorie.
Yeah, like don't choose those. You choose the middle range, and you're going to have to estimate on the portions, but you've already understood, like use through the hand rule, like what portions look like. So estimate on those portions, and be sure that like if this is something that happens on the regular and you are trying to track at this time, don't let yourself like be like, oh, I don't know what this is, I'm just not going to track. Because if you track it and you're 100 to 200 calories off, that's better than just not tracking it and giving yourself that mindset of like, oh, this day's over, this day's ruined, we'll just eat whatever and then go on to the next day, because you're more than likely going to overeat the rest of the day.
Yep.
If you just throw that one meal out the window. And last thing is, we always recommend when you eat out at a restaurant or any kind of food that's not prepared, you want to add some fat, like by putting in like, do you put a tablespoon of butter or oil into that calculation?
I would even say, like if you're at a really fancy restaurant or sit down and order kind of place, add a tablespoon of butter or oil to your food log for every item that's on your plate. So if you get a steak, there's a tablespoon. You get a sauteed vegetables with it, there's a tablespoon. One other thing on there, there's another tablespoon.
And this can get emotional. I went through this when I was logging. Like, you don't want to have to do that, because you're like, I didn't physically eat a tablespoon of butter that I don't remember just picking one up and eating it, and I don't want to see that, and I don't want this to eliminate things that I get to eat later. But just remember that you're in this for the awareness. You're in this for like the education piece. And so what are you learning from this process? You're learning that like it is hard to eat out in the world when you don't have control. So when we eat out, when we eat at restaurants, when we eat, things that we haven't prepared, it's more likely more fat than we would prepared ourselves. So the education there is like, the more I can control my own food, the more I'm going to have control over my own body weight.
Amen. That's a great point. And the last thing I want to add to this is, I guess 2 things. As you're going down the cafeteria buffet line, try to like pick as many foods that are easily identifiable so that you can actually visualize what's in them. If it's a casserole or a succotash or a menudo or whatever, who knows what's in that? It's going to be much harder for you to estimate, but single ingredient foods will always be easier to identify.
And cafeterias are a great option, honestly, to be able to like, usually they have a ton of choices.
Yeah.
So you're not just faced with like, okay, it's not like the lunch cafeteria at school where you're like, I'm given 2 choices,
here's
the Salisbury steak or the or the fish sticks.
Yeah.
You usually have like a wide variety of options. So
probably even have some vegetables.
Picking out those whole foods is the way to go.
And then the last thing I'll say is, always remember that when it comes to not just fat loss or weight gain or whatever, but nutrition in general, quantity is king. If you're going down that food line and there's like a peach cobbler that is just calling your name, quantity is king. Go for a small portion. You'll still get to enjoy the taste, but you'll have just so many fewer calories than if you just go in on the full cup size serving.
Someone else if they want it.
Identify what's high in calories, enjoy it to its fullest, but don't have a lot of it. And that'll help you stay on track, whether you estimate and log it or not. There's just advice you can take with you.
Yeah.
Is that it for questions?
That's it.
All right. Enjoy your Zevias out there in the world.
And don't forget to answer my question about the salt water.
Tell us about salt water and come work with us. Join this month so that you can get a free month of nutrition coaching.
You won't regret it.
You've been listening to these episodes, seeing pictures of our clients, seeing videos of our clients online. That could be you. Definitely apply for coaching in the link to the show notes. We'll get on the phone, see if we're a good fit for each other, and we'll start working together. All right. You guys have a good rest of your day.